bring back doing things just for funsies. Where did the funsies go? Hello, welcome back to my channel, Knits by Mandy. My name is Amanda, and today I have the 9th episode of the Knits by Mandy podcast for you. Today is going to be a bit of a chiller, less knitting dense episode because I am working on some secret gift knitting, and out of an abundance of caution, I don't want to talk about it yet, but I do have content coming up for that. That will be live once I give the gifts, but I want to be very cautious, and I really want whatever I'm doing to be a surprise. So that is all I'll say about that, but content forthcoming. So today will be a little short because I only have one thing to show you, but I thought we could talk about what I'm working on, and then we'll maybe just do a little knit and chat at the end, talking about the season of gift knitting and all of that good stuff, and a little bit of gift knitting, and I think a little overlap into monetizing your hobby as well, because there's a bit of an overlap there in subjects, at least how I see it. So stick around for that, and big sniff of my nose, stick around for that. And I like to start my episodes with just a little bit of a life update, a little check-in moment, but I always put in chapters if you want to go ahead and skip forward to the knitting where I'm talking about my Whitmoor cardigan. Before that, if you're sticking around, I'm obviously somewhere different, and I'm also filming on a new phone. So I just use my phone to film for these videos, but I just got the iPhone 14 Pro, and hopefully there's a little bit of an increase of video quality. And like I said, obviously am home in Pittsburgh. I actually filmed this yesterday with the lights on, but there was something technical going on with the video and it was flickering, so the lights are off, but it's very pretty when the lights are on. And back home for the month of December, we came up this weekend to go to a Steelers-Ravens game. My boyfriend's a huge Ravens fan, my family's a huge Steelers fan. Austin, my boyfriend, left. I'm just kind of chilling up here. It didn't make sense to do all the back and forth. Plus, I really like getting this kind of slower holiday time with my family, and just, it feels really nice and relaxing to kind of finish my year this way. So that's what I'm doing right now, and in January, I'll actually be moving in with my boyfriend. So in between this episode and the last episode, we viewed an apartment. I think I actually posted my last video, and then we viewed an apartment, and then obviously got applied, approved. We scheduled our move-in dates, bought a mattress, so lots of big things going on, and I am very excited. I'm a little, moving makes me feel very anxious, but who doesn't feel anxious when moving? But I'm actually feeling really good. I'm really excited to start this chapter. This was my year or so of living alone, and I've really loved living alone. I'm very introverted, and although it has come with its challenges too, right? So I've loved all the introverted alone time I can get, doing things on my own terms, just like using the TV whenever I want, leaving dishes in the sink if I want to, because no one else has to use the sink except for me. So all those great things, but then of course everything does always fall back onto you, like feeding yourself all the time, cleaning your kitchen all the time. And sometimes I think during the workday, I do get a little lonely. So the new unit, it's going to be a 2-bedroom. I'm going to have an office for work, and then maybe that'll be the new podcast filming location, although I'll miss my couch, but we'll see what happens. And yeah, very excited. We have in-unit laundry. We have a balcony. There's a pool in the building, a pool in the building. And yeah, I'm really excited, and I'm really looking forward to the new chapter. So that is what's going on. You can probably expect to see like I said, a gift knitting video at the end of the month, as well as what I made this year and some 2023 knitting plans, which is so wild because the first video I ever posted on here was a what I made in this year video, and we're coming up on a year anniversary of posting on Knits by Mandy, which, how exciting, how fun. So with that, I think that's all I have for you right now, but let me show you what I've been working on. This is the Whitmoor cardigan by Amy Lowden, and wow, what a fun project. So let's talk about the specs and the things that you need to know before I get into my experience. I am knitting this cardigan in the size medium. I have some notes on that in my notes on the project, and I'm knitting it in the Mayflower Easy Care Merino and Super Kid Silk from hobbi. I bought it from hobbi. I'm not sure if there's other places that you can purchase it. The Merino is in colorway, I think it's like 66, and this is colorway 96. And I believe they have the same name on the website. I think they're both like cherry blossom or something like that. And I'm really happy with this color. And I'm really happy with the yarn combination as well. Just a few notes on the yarn. I'm not a very experienced mohair user, but my impression so far is that it's soft and it's not irritating to the skin, at least for me. I know that's an extremely personal thing about whether, you know, mohair, you're sensitive to it or not, or even wool. And this mohair is 76% mohair and 24% silk. And I feel like you can even tell that in the ball. It has a bit more of a matte and floofy appearance, although you can still see, I'm getting some sun here, but you can still see those silk strands in the yarn, and then also in the fabric. At least I can see them in person. I'm not sure how well it's going to translate on camera, but I'm overall really happy with the finished fabric of these being held together. And I have made gauge. I made gauge exactly for this sweater, which is great. I'm using the 4mm needles. And this sweater is a lace cardigan, so it's knit back and forth, top down, and the pattern includes both lace charts and written instructions. I'll be honest, I haven't looked at the written instructions for the lace parts because the charts have been pretty clear. This is my first time really reading a lace chart. I just previously worked with charts for the Ingrid sweater by petiteknit. But these are, I would say, just a little more involved than the petiteknit charts for that certain pattern. So the other thing about this is that the button band you'll see is knit as you go. And I haven't made up my mind whether I like this or not. I think when I'm done with the body, I'll be happy to be done, but it does just make the process a little bit more finicky and a little bit more like delicate. I'm sure you could amend this to add and pick up the button band if you really wanted to. One thing that I did not as the pattern instructed was use metal DPNs to hold the button row stitches instead of wooden DPNs. And she specifically instructs that because just metal slides more than wood. And I know that, but I didn't honestly necessarily want to shell out for the metal or the wooden DPNs because I wasn't sure how much I was going to use them. So I bought the metal ones. Also, that's the only thing that my craft store had in this size. This is 2.75 millimeter needles. So I couldn't get them easily. And I didn't feel like, paying for wooden DPNs, getting them shipped, it just seemed like a big fuss. So I was like, I'll just get them in person. I'll deal with that mistake. I have had the needles slip off the middle DPNs. I have unknowingly kind of just like pulled out the needles and the stitches come out. And then you have to very thoughtfully rethread them onto the needle. It's just a little tricky because the stitches are so small and it's the mohair in the wool held double, so it doesn't always make the clearest passage for your needle. And I have had some hiccups. I think you can see this biggest one here where I accidentally dropped this stitch. If I didn't put my finger through here, you wouldn't necessarily see. So I think I'm gonna do a little, I always say to myself, I'm gonna like fix it in post. I'm gonna do a little work afterwards, after this is blocked, just to clean up those little mistakes. Other than that, I've really enjoyed making this. And this is something different from anything I've ever made before in many ways. So first of all, it's the first cardigan that I've ever made. And it's also the first lace yoke that I've ever made. So that's kind of a lot. That's kind of a lot. I was a bit intimidated by the lace when I purchased the pattern, but I knew I wanted to challenge myself in that way. And I will say that it is much easier than I thought it was going to be. I think the thing about lace work that is scary to me is that it's a little bit harder to go back and fix your mistakes, at least how I see it. And then I also knew that in selecting doing a mohair and a wool, that it would just be harder to frog. So I haven't run into any huge issues yet where I've had to frog. I'll talk about a fit concern in a little bit, but no like mistakes made on my part that have made me need to rip back. So that's been great. I've made some mistakes, but nothing that I need to rip back for. Let me be clear. Maybe just like missing a yarn over or something like that. But I think because of like the repetitiveness, it's a bit forgiving. And oh my God, this is so pretty. But I'm not too worried. And again, the mohair I feel like really helps kind of cover any middle ground mistakes. So it's been different for me in another way as well. And that's I've taken time to work on this, but I've also really enjoyed the process. So it's a bit different for me because, for example, the Ingrid sweater, I really enjoyed the process, but I also like tore through it. I was so excited to get it done. And this, because it's the first time I've done a project like this, I'm a little more cautious. I've just been giving myself the space to slowly work through it and also kind of in tandem with the gift knits that I'm working on, and not try to really crank out the yoke or get to the sleeve separation. I was thinking I wanted to wait to do sleeve separation until I completed first the gift knit that I'm working on and also showed you it all, but I decided we don't have to wait. You can just see it in all of its one-pieced glory, and it's coming up soon. I just have to finish this last leaf, as you can see. So mine has, I think, 6 leaves. I'm calling them leaves because they kind of look like, leaves from a tree kind of overlapping. I don't know what you would call them. What do you see them as? But I have 1 more leaf to go and I'm almost done. The one thing that I have changed is I started knitting the size medium, and then I started draping this around my shoulders and got a little bit concerned about the fit. So in another way that this sweater is different for me is that it's not necessarily a dead ringer for my style and for my wardrobe. It's very interesting that I've enjoyed this process so much, but I am a little bit concerned about not the longevity, but how often I'll actually pull this out of my closet to wear. I've just never really owned anything like this. I feel like the lace is very feminine. It's very frilly, and that isn't necessarily what I lean towards or default on for my projects. So in order to kind of balance the the femininity and the frilliness that I feel. And I'm really not trying to say frilliness like it's a negative thing, because it's not. It's just like a little more frilly than I would, prefer or usually go for. I obviously like it because I'm making it. This feels feminine and girly to me, but the way to combat it is that I feel like the color is very bright and vibrant and young and fresh. I feel like they kind of balance each other well. And the other thing was that I wanted it to have pretty like zero positive ease, and maybe I'm even thinking like negative ease. And I really liked that the first project photo on the Ravelry page, I'll show you, which kind of inspired my take on this. It's in a bright lavender. It's quite form-fitting to the person who's wearing it. And I really liked everything that was going on in that picture for all the reasons I just stated. So with the medium, I was feeling like if I did another round of increases, it was going to be too big and too baggy. In a way that I didn't want it to be. So I went ahead and I just skipped that round of increases, and that left me with a stitch count that is for the size small. So I'm gonna go ahead and just follow the size small instructions for the sleeve splitting and hope that it like comes out okay. The only thing that I could look at the pattern and do the math for and look at like people's pictures and figure out and look at the charts is I'm worried that the charts won't, not the charts, like the lace sections aren't gonna split evenly or perfectly, but I've decided that that's a risk I'm willing to take. I'm not the best at this like reverse engineering aspect. I don't have like a great mind where I can kind of like visualize things spatially and how they'll turn out. So I think I'm just gonna go ahead with what the pattern says and see where that gets me. I'm not really too worried about it actually, and I think if I was, I would be doing more to kind of counteract that. So that is where I am. So I've really enjoyed, excuse me. So I think one thing that I'm already kind of pulling away from this experience, and one thing that I think will help inform and maybe be not a problem, but a theme for me in 2023 is balancing wanting to learn new techniques and skills, but also still maintaining like some kind of wearability and practicality for my wardrobe. I don't necessarily think that everything that you have to make, you need to want to wear it all the time. For me, I just know that I derive a lot of joy and happiness and glee from wearing my finished objects. So if I can aim to have something in my closet that I will wear a lot, I would rather do that than knit something that I wouldn't wear, But I know that some people fully knit just to enjoy the process, and I think that's great. So like, there's a lot there, But that is what I've learned so far knitting this. I don't think I have any other notes other than saying that the lace itself is not as scary as I thought it was going to be. I think one thing that looks intimidating, but you don't realize, is that the lace pattern, at least in this sweater, it repeats itself over and over again for each section. So you're doing the same thing, however many leaves there are and however many columns there are, that many times in a row. And you're doing that back and forth for quite a while. So you kind of get the hang of it, like anything. That part I've really enjoyed, and I really love doing the right side rows for the lace. Yeah, and I'll be actually pretty sad when the yoke is over and we go back to just knitting and purling. So right now I'm doing the button band. So I have to keep a DPN. You can't even see my hands. Maybe I'll adjust for this portion, for this little knit and chat, but you just have to, carry around a 3rd DPN, and I always keep it by my side and not next to me on the couch because it will most definitely fall in between the cushions. Okay, I've moved you down just so you can see what I'm doing with my hands. I feel like maybe I should have filmed it from this angle the whole time. I don't know. Kind of, in a new space, new phone, figuring it all out at once. But let's talk about gift knitting without giving too much away of what I'm doing right now. I think I'll just be straight up with you guys. I lurk the crafting subreddits a lot. I do not post. I'm a lurker. But there's always like some internet conversation about gift knitting and who's knit worthy. The term selfish knitter gets thrown around a lot. And also, I've seen posts of people knitting things for either like their coworkers or friends or family members, and makers being disappointed that their item wasn't as well loved or as welcomed as they wanted it to be received. And I think this is just like an interesting topic. I think that all kind of goes back to how any individual person values a handmade item. And I think that really ranges from, people who either have experience making things. Of course, they know what goes into making handmade items, and may appreciate it more than the average Joe. Sorry, my needle is being twisty. Let's twist it back in without eating a stitch. My eternal problem. I think we're in. Cool. What was I saying? People differently value handmade items and the work it takes to make handmade goods. And after this gift knit that I'm doing, I think that I will not make things unless people explicitly ask, or unless I like explicitly collaborate with someone, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think I'm gonna be surprising people with gifted items anymore. Even though the surprise is fun, I think it's good to let that person have a say in what fiber is going to be used, expectations of care, like a full transparency about how much fiber costs, because I think a lot of people don't understand how much yarn costs depending on the yarn that you use, and things like that, So I think that is my take and my approach so far. I have been I'm kind of itching to maybe make some hand knit ornaments for folks. We'll see if I end up getting to that. I have things that I can work on for myself. So I'm like, do I? I don't know. It's hard to say. I think for me personally, the more I put into an item, probably the more I would be upset if someone doesn't use it or enjoys it. Like, I made my friends hats like all last year, and I don't think I would be too hurt if they never wore their hats made with lion brand woolies that took me a day to make. But luckily my friends do wear them, and they always send me pictures of them wearing them, which is very sweet. But that wouldn't really like cut me to the core. That wouldn't slice me up raw if they didn't wear them. And then I had a really positive gift making experience this summer for my great aunt. I made her an Afghan, and I think she is like the most appreciative person who I could have gifted anything to. So I think you really got to know your audience. Like, you really have to think about it if you're going to be, upset if someone doesn't use your item. That's just my approach. Again, we all have our different approaches to things. Some people just like don't gift knit at all because they don't like deadlines. And I feel that I gave myself a lot of time for this gift knit to make myself not be stressed out and rush, because I don't want to rush things. And I've done it before, and it's not fun to have to rush things. It like takes literally all the joy out of it for me. because then I kind of feel like I'm a machine and I'm not, I don't know, enjoying my hobby. Everything comes down to me enjoying my hobby. I feel like it should really be that simple. You should enjoy your hobby. And I feel like we don't say that enough. Like, you can enjoy it. And I think this kind of bleeds into monetizing your hobby. And this isn't something that I don't think I've talked about explicitly on my channel. I do find it an interesting topic. I find that I think millennials especially, we've been, for so many reasons, like targeted, like hustle culture. We've been targeted by hustle culture. I am like very anti-hustle culture. I will be super honest. Like, no, you do not have to rise and grind. Like, you very much like go into work, do what's expected of you, and also have time for your family, your friends, and things that you like to do. Call me radical, call me a labor rights activist, but that's just my opinion on that. I think that it's good to have things that you like to do that aren't monetized, that aren't work. And I think it's kind of sad that in general, like, society it's just like, we live in a society. I think in general it's sad that so many times if people like come up, find a hobby, there's like always a way or an avenue to monetize it. I don't know if I'm wording that correctly, because I don't think if you want to monetize your hobby there's anything wrong, but I don't think that it's right that the default should be, once you find something you enjoy, how do you find a way to make money out of it? I hope that makes sense. Like, are people doing things for the sake of enjoying them anymore? One thing that that always makes me think about this is a common compliment that I think people will give hobbyists, crafters, fiber artists, whatever you want to call them, people that work with their hands and make things. They're always like, this is so good, you should sell it. And whenever people say that, and I'm not trying to brag that like, people say that about my things, like they think that I should sell them. I feel like most makers have heard that before. It's like, for me, a little part of me is like, no, because then I have to decide if I just want to accept that compliment or then go into a long-winded explanation of the cost of materials, how long it takes to make things, what I would charge for my skilled labor, and how if I charge the actual price of an item and then wanted to make profit, that no one would want to buy it. I could explain that to someone, or I could just be like, oh my gosh, thank you. I'm actually, I just prefer making things for myself right now. Or I could just say thanks. I literally could just say thanks. No one's ever like, been like, you need to make an Etsy shop. I think it's just something that people say because I think it comes from non-makers, because I think it's a compliment to say that something that you make looks like it could be bought in a store, or it has that kind of, it looks like it could have monetary value attached to it. I mean, it's a compliment in a way, but this is actually just a macro critique on capitalism. You didn't know that you were sitting down for that. But at the same time, it's like, okay, could we just maybe for 1 second think that I wanted to do this for fun? For funsies. Like, bring back doing things just for funsies. Where did the funsies go? I'm kind of rambling. I did do a knit and chat this summer where I kind of talked about social media and knitting as well. And I think what it all boils down to for me is I need to do things at a level in that I still enjoy them. And for me, that is knitting, but also I think other things in life as well. One example that is not knitting related is I was really, before the pandemic, into yoga, and I was at a studio all the time, which I really loved and enjoyed the community there. And I decided to complete a teacher training, which was great. It's an investment, and I met great people, but oh man, am I all messed up? Are my leaves uneven? Really into knitting, or really into yoga. I really committed myself to this, 200-hour teacher training, which was intense, if I'm being honest. And I really just got burnt out on it. I really wanted to teach. I finished the training like February of 2020. And so then the pandemic happened and in-person teaching wasn't a thing. And maybe I would have had more momentum for it. But then from what I really learned from other teachers was that teaching yoga is like kind of a hustle, and you really have to put yourself out there, and it's a business. And of course, for all these hobbies, there is a business side of thing, because like you have to buy things in order to like usually do your hobby in any way. Not necessarily for yoga. Like you don't necessarily need to buy anything to do yoga. In the Western world, do you need to pay to like go to a yoga class and do a training? Yes. What I'm saying is, I think I've seen firsthand me really diving in and really like being intense about a hobby, and then I lost basically all interest for it. And I think that also had to do with like the physical tax the training took on me, because it was just a lot of fucking yoga. Pardon my French. But I want to be a little bit more sustainable with how I approach knitting, and I don't want to burn out on either producing content or like the sweater. I don't want to, get through the most enjoyable part just to get through it, because I want to say that I had something done for a video. And I feel like I talk about this a lot on my channel, but I think it bears repeating. I think it's just good to check in. So those are really my thoughts on gift knitting and monetizing your hobby, and you should sell that. That's so great. I would love to know everyone else's thoughts. Like, do you think the same thing when people say that you should sell something? Or like, how does that make you feel? Do you feel like people value your work as much as they would value maybe something from a store? Have you had negative gift knitting experiences? Have you had positive gift knitting experiences? I really would like to hear, because I think obviously all of our personal experiences color our opinions on these things. And I would just love to hear from some other knitters, your thoughts, opinions, experiences. Yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys today. Again, it was a very light, very chill episode because this is my only whip. Didn't buy anything. And I don't really have any grand future plans so far. And I kind of want to save any plans for a 2023 plans video. So that's where I'm at right now. I really appreciate you all being here, and I am wishing everyone health, because things are wild out here with flu, RSV, COVID. Wishing you all healthy, be up to date on your vaccines, health, happiness, wealth, love, peace, joy to the world this holiday season. And stay tuned for some end of the month December content, and I will see y'all soon. Bye.